How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Black Metal Rebellion. I'm your host, Jesse Morgan, and I'm here to do a review for you. This being Motionless in White's new album, Graveyard Shift, sent to me by James Forshawn, previously of Humanectomy fame and fortune. Lol. But yeah, he sent me this, the kindness of his heart, and I told him I would do a review on it because it's really good, and just to kind of give my thoughts on this kind of music. Now, what kind of music is Motionless in White? If you haven't heard them before, well, they're kind of a melodic, sometimes gothic metalcore with the odd elements of kind of deathcore and breakdowns here and there. If you don't know, they're from Pennsylvania in the U.S., and their members are as follows: Chris Motionless on vocals, Ricky Horror on guitar, Ryan Sitkowski on guitar, and Devin Ghost Sola on bass. They didn't have anyone listed for the drums position on their Facebook page or anything else, so I'm not quite sure what's up with that. Maybe they just kind of use a live drummer and don't really have anyone assigned to the drumming position officially at the moment, but yeah. Anyways, vocal-wise, the band kind of reminds me of a bit of kind of Marilyn Manson, Dope, a bit of Edema. Sometimes it kind of reminds me of Pain or Peter Tetrakin, like a lot on the song Rats. It's performed well, like the cleans and stuff are performed really well. The highs and mid-harsh vocals are also in there. Also done fairly decently for, you know, melodic metalcore, and the lyrics are kind of cheesy and edgy at times, but mostly decent and clever or kind of amusing. Jonathan Davis does a guest vocal on Necessary Evil, and it's pretty badass. I really like that track. The guitars are heavy, kind of bouncy. They've got a great tone. There's a lot of catchy riffs throughout this album, very melodic. I would have to say there's a lot of energy going on. Pardon me. And there's definitely a lot of variety of riffs and things going on, you know, considering the genre. Not just your whole open-ended jun, cha-cha-jun kind of thing. Also performed and recorded really well. Their riffing kind of reminded me of like Bullet for My Valentine or After the Burial or As Blood Turns Black, stuff like that. So if you're into those bands, you'll really enjoy it. Now, the bass, I couldn't really make out the bass, so the nickname for the bassist being Ghost is kind of appropriate because he's kind of failed to be present there, or at least prominent. I'd say the vocals are like the most prominent thing out of all this. Perhaps the bass was maybe a little too distorted or had a lot of effects on it, so you couldn't really tell it was the bass, and mixed really low. On the other hand, there was a lot of interesting like keyboard and synth elements to the record, and they were enjoyable, very unique sounding, and brought a different kind of feel to the whole recording. The drums, I'm going to assume were either programmed or synthetically enhanced somehow. They're pretty simplistic in nature, but they're effective and like punchy. Fairly generic snare sound, very kind of like high produced kind of multimedia drums, but they weren't off-putting. It wasn't like an off-putting snare sound. The drums were definitely not the focal point of this album, and they just kind of were there and added to the overall heaviness to everything else that was going on. There's like no super special tom work or fills, no extra like little cymbal noises like ticks or clacks on the ride or hi-hat or anything crazy like that. There's, I think, one or two basic kind of crashes or like a ride cymbal, but they're all right. They did what they needed to do. If they didn't actually have a someone officially on drums for that album, and it was just kind of like a session drummer or program drums, then it was decent enough. My favorite tracks on this album was probably, not in order by the way, was Rats, which is the first track, and then the song that Jonathan Davis did guest vocals on, which is really, really cool, called Necessary Evil, and then number 8 being Voices. Now for some reason, some odd reason, I don't know why, but I could hear 3 Days Grace potentially doing a cover of the song Voices. The way Chris Motionless did like presented the vocals in Voices, I could definitely see maybe some 3 Days Grace influences there and some of the riffing. But not in a bad way. Like, the wife really, really enjoys 3 Days Grace, and I don't mind some of their older stuff as well. My overall thoughts on this album, though, was it was just a fun and entertaining ride. Lots of groove and melody in there, full of catchy riffs and kind of lyrical landmarks in there. Definitely stuff that you could paste right on the back of a band shirt and imprint font. There was a lot of kind of heavy and haunting atmosphere throughout at times, which once again is kind of interesting considering it's like a metalcore, a gothic-y kind of melodic metalcore with the odd deathcore element in it. So to say that is kind of a pat on the back for sure. Brings an unexpected high school nostalgia feel with it. I don't know, I kind of could imagine me like having this on repeat in like grade 9, 10, or 11. It mixes a lot of different musical elements that almost anyone should be able to enjoy, as long as you're not too narrow-minded and not just kind of dead set on like one specific genre of music, like brutal death metal or black metal or stuff like that. But if you enjoy a wide array of music genres, then this Graveyard Shift album by Motionless in White should tickle your fancy. And once again, it kind of reminded me of like Manson meets Pain meets early Bullet for My Valentine. It kind of has elements of Edema meets Dope, even meets kind of AFI elements in there at times, but with like the odd crushing deathcore breakdowns and heaviness to it as well. It's a very like a well expansive and well-rounded album all at once. They definitely weren't afraid to kind of go in a multitude of directions, but have it really fit well within the main idea they were going for. So yeah, really enjoyable album, really fun, lots of catchy riffs that could get stuck in your head, and once again lots of cheesy and edgy kind of one-liner lyrics in there, but some of them were actually pretty decent. Like, some of them weren't all just like in your face kind of edgy stuff, but yeah, all in all, really good album. If I had to give it a score, I'd probably give it a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10. But that's just my personal preference. Definitely check it out for yourself. I will leave a link provided in the description below. Thank you to James Porchon of Humanectomy for sending me this. Really appreciate it. The wife really, really appreciates it, as she really likes the new album a lot. So it's going to get multiple listens. It's going to get well used. I'm Jesse Morgan, and I would buy this album. So cheers, guys. Thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed. For Glory, for the Rebellion, Slammerella out.